We go to the fourth inning. The Mets down 5-1. Let's go downstairs to Steve Gelb. Steve.
Well, Gary, you look up the term baseball lifer, and I know you guys set it up, but you look up that term in the dictionary, and Phil Regan's picture comes up right next to it. And Phil, I feel like we have just so little time to get so much information in there, but in all your years, all the things you've seen, what were maybe the top three that you were a part of, that you experienced?
Well, yeah, there were a lot of them, but I guess starting in '61, playing against the Yankees when Maris hit 61 home runs. In Detroit that year, we won 101 games and went home. They beat us by about 6 or 7 games. But I guess one of the top, a couple of the top ones was being with Seattle and being in Boston when Roger Clemens struck out 20 players of our hitters to set the American League record. In '98, I was the pitching coach in Chicago with the Cubs when Kerry Wood struck out 20. So I saw 2 out of the 2 records that were broken by the American and National League. Of course, Cal Ripken breaking Lou Gehrig's record. I was managing that, and that was pretty emotional time and a great time. There have been so many. As I look back, Ernie Banks hitting his 500th home run, and I got the win that day. So that was a great home run he hit. But there were so many of them. As you think, you go back, Wade Boggs getting his 3,000th hit, a home run in Tampa off one of my pitchers. I even scouted Ron Darling in '88 when they were. I was the advanced scout for the Dodgers.
What'd you think?
Not bad. Pretty good hitter too. I had to say that. He's watching it.
Your check's in the mail. but you know, I mean, listen, I use the term and we use the term baseball lifer, but you just described, I mean, amazing highlights in a baseball life. What is it like to be a baseball lifer? What's it like to love this game so much that, you know, even now at 80 years old, you just love being around and being amongst, you know, single A pitchers and just being a part of it still?
Well, I think it, you know, it gets in your blood when you're very young and you start off, and it's something, you know, I've always done, and it's the idea that once you get done playing, that you can go back and help kids get to the big leagues. A lot of these kids have come through our system, you know, and now are pitching in the big leagues, and it's a tremendous thrill when you see that, when you tell them, if you do this and you stay with it and you stick with it and you got the dedication, you're going to pitch in the big leagues. And a lot of them look at you and say, really, you think I can? And say, yeah, you know, and they are, you know, and they're tremendous pitchers now. But you know, and they're also appreciative. They're also so great when you give them one little help and you live with them for that year, and you don't let them go real easy.
Well, that ball almost didn't go too easy as Bruce made a circus catch there on Dietrich. But you know, when you took this role, it's your 9th year in the Mets organization. I'm sure you couldn't have any idea that you'd be mentoring some of the pitching talent that has come through. When you look at all of these guys now and where they are, what level of pride do you have, and what were they like to coach at such a young, tender age in their development?
Well, you're right, because Omar Minaya hired me in here, and I had been retired for about 6 years, but still went down to winter ball and did it in the winter. And he saw me down there, and he kept asking me to come and work for him. I kept saying no, and finally he called me and said, I just want you to come and do this for 1 year. I got a problem in St. Lucie. Do it for me for a favor. And I said, all right, for a favor, I'm going to do it for 1 year for you. Well, that was, you know, 10 years ago that I've stated. But the big thing is, all of these guys have really a lot of things in common. If you look at them, the size, they've all got great size. They're all great athletes, almost all of them. They all have tremendous arms. You know, that's pretty easy to work with. And you get a guy throwing 95 to 100 miles an hour, it's pretty easy to teach. But I think the other thing is, if you watch them, they all got pretty good mechanics. They're balanced. They throw the ball well. They work on their mechanics all the time. I was down in the bullpen with Dan today, and Noah Syndergaard was down there, and he's special. You know, I had him when he was 19 years old, and he'd throw a 98-mile-an-hour fastball in the black, and he'd look at me and say, Phil, was that good? I said, that's pretty good. But you know, the biggest thing I think is that they all had that desire. There's a lot of kids. You know, I had a kid that could throw 100 miles an hour, and he's out of baseball now. He's not playing anymore because he said he sweat too much and he couldn't grip the ball, you know. And so it's attitude. A lot of it is attitude and the way they go about it and their desire to want it and get to New York and meet the challenge, you know, and stay here.
it's a very rare thing for a pitcher to come up and at single A have someone like you to bounce ideas off of it. And as a mentor, what were you trying to get across as a ball comes right next to us here, Phil? We almost had to grab one for you, but what were the basic building blocks, the fundamentals you tried to get across to each one of these pitchers as they crossed your path?
Well, you know, I think there are certain fundamentals you got to teach, and I talk about balance a lot. The way, you know, one of my basic rules, and I'll debate this with Ron Darling maybe, but one of my things is your head should never go behind your feet. Now that sounds pretty simple, but if you watch a catcher, his head stays over his feet. If you watch an outfielder, he throws his head over his feet. So I teach that where their head doesn't go back with their body, and then they fly open. But squaring up to the hitter, getting a balance, squaring up the hitter, landing right, make sure your landing is not on your heel but on the front of your foot and the ball of your foot, so you're landing and squaring up. And this is really where you begin to get your speed. When you get to the point where you're squared up in the last whip, if you're out over the ball, is where you're going to get your speed. And I really think if you get them the balance and the right mechanics, they can throw a pitch, and they can say, like I said, you can throw a slider, say down and away, and you don't have to think about it. When you're throwing good, the ball's going to go there. But when you're having problems and you do one little thing wrong, you don't get the ball where you want to. So you try to teach them. You got to be consistent with all your pitches. So, and one of the things that I did, I don't know how much time we got, but I always read Ted Williams was the greatest hitter, I think, of all times, and he said if he swung at the ball down and away, he'd hit 240. So after each practice that we would have a bullpen session, I'd make him throw 10 pitches down and away, and I said, when you throw 8 out of 10, you can pitch in the big leagues. And most of them did it.
Phil, I wish we had more time, trust me, but Wei-Yin Chen just got his first major league hit. So on that note, we have to send it back to Gary, Keith, and